What's chirping, crickets? This is Kim from Kim Takes On. As previously mentioned, I'm Kim. Hi. And this is my co-producer, Terrence the Wonder Duck. Terrence says hi, and he hopes you're all having a terrific week. So today, crickets, I've decided to do something a little different. I'm still going to talk about music, but I'm going to talk about something that is pretty important to me. It's been important to me for a number of years. We won't say how many because a lady never says her age if she's smart. I am shocking to some people I know, since I seem like the epitome of class and beauty. I am a pro wrestling fan. I have been a pro wrestling fan since how do I put this? Pre-internet, yes. I've been a wrestling fan before Al Gore invented the internet. Yes, there was that time, crickets. Before when we were outside of slaying dinosaurs and things. No, it wasn't that bad. I actually became a wrestling fan in high school, and it never really left. It just kind of like I got bit by the bug, and it never really left. And of course, when you're a wrestling fan, you have to deal with all the people that just decide that they absolutely have to tell you, that's all fake, right? Okay, first of all, number one, around here, we don't use the F word. Well, we don't use that F word. Other F words we use a lot, fudge, fork, funicula. I don't even know if that starts with an F. Anyway. But fake, no, we don't use fake. Predetermined, sure, fine, whatever. But people who are like, come to me and feel compelled. I mean, honest to frog, you would think, I use that word a lot too. You would honestly think these people are compelled by the spirit or whatever, that, that's all fake, right? And when it comes to people like that, my response is usually, do you watch horror movies? And usually they say yes. And I go, do you get scared when you watch a horror movie? And they usually go, yeah. And then I lean in and I go, that lady's really not getting her head chopped off, right? And yet you're screaming and yelling and you're scared. So what does that say about you? Now leave me alone or I will bite you, and not in the fun way. There are different ways to bite people. Some of that stuff is an internal monologue. I'll be perfectly honest with you, but some of it isn't, because that's the nice thing about the fact that when you get a little older, you get to the point where you really don't care what other people think. Because if I cared what other people think, I probably wouldn't have purple hair, and my co-producer wouldn't be a rubber duck, although he's a very awesome rubber duck. And also not one of the only rubber ducks in our house. I have Fred, who lives in my purse. He's a purse duck. And we have a few other little duckies that we've bought. Do yourself a favor. If you ever go to Chatham, Massachusetts, which I would definitely recommend. Chatham is a gorgeous place. There is a store in Chatham called Ducks by the Window. And no, they are not, or Ducks in the Window. And no, they are not like giving me money to plug them. And it's the cutest little store. All they sell are rubber ducks and stuff like that. So if you ever get down that way, tell them that Kim from Kim Takes On sent you. I don't know what good that will do. Probably nothing. But anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, okay. Sorry. Terrence just reminded me. See, that's why I have a co-producer, because I need all the support I can get, to be honest. Anyway, pro wrestling. So, why I'm talking about wrestling on my show, where I usually talk about music, because I know all the music people are going, what the frig? As I mentioned, wrestling is a big, important part of my life and has been for a long time. And music has been a big, important part of wrestling. Also, before I go one step further, on my show, I do try to be, silly, goofy, wacky, honk, clown nose Kim, because the world's full of enough sadness and sorrow and pain, and you might as well come over here and watch me act like a dip. If nothing else, if it makes one people smile, then mission accomplished. But right now, I did want to say goodbye to someone that just recently passed away from the wrestling world. It was announced yesterday that pro wrestler Sid Udy, which was his real name, who was known to wrestling fans for over 30 years under many different names, Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, Psycho Sid. We lost him. He has passed away. He was 63 years old. And to his family and friends and many, many fans, I offer my own deep sympathy and compassion. And just on a personal note, apropos of nothing other than this story, I suppose, and my own feelings, fuck cancer. Sorry if that offended anybody. But going back to music. Now, I realize this one might shock some people who either don't watch wrestling or don't go to independent shows. And if you don't go to independent shows near where you live, shame on you, because you should. Independent wrestling shows are, for the most part, not every one of them, but for the most part are fun as heck. And sometimes you wind up seeing people and then 10 years later, they're in the WWE or AEW and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember when blah, blah, blah. Although AEW hasn't been around for 10 years yet, but I don't math well, so what can I say? But they're fun. And the thing is, you're more likely to hear popular music at an independent show as opposed to one of the larger shows because, let's be honest, just like everything else in the world, music costs money. So if you are, which is something that didn't get tweaked onto until sometime in the late 80s, more early 90s, because when I started watching wrestling, like I said, which was back in the mid 80s, nobody gave a damn. It was the wild friggin' West, and people, the WWF and back then, and WCW, or still the NWA back then, I think. People used popular music as their entrance themes, and nobody said nothing. Everybody was fine with it until somebody finally realized, hey, we make money off this. So we'll get to that part in a minute. But back then, way back then, no, I'm leaving one way off because I don't need to make myself feel older. Sorry. They just used willy-nilly. They just used music, whomever. I remember when Hulk Hogan's entrance music was Survivor's Eye of the Tiger, which actually made sense since Hulk Hogan was in Rocky III, which was where Eye of the Tiger was featured. So that kind of made sense, I guess. That, and it's just a great song. And I know some people out there are waiting for me to bring up Supernatural and Jensen Ackles lip syncing to Eye of the Tiger. I was going to not bring it up, but I figured I wouldn't disappoint any of my Supernatural fam out there. Hey. Terrence says hey too. Again, though, this is really funny because I remember this at the time and going, I don't believe this. One of my shows that I did a while back was a show about songs that people get wrong, like people who dance to Every Breath You Take at their wedding receptions, and you're just going, this song is about stalking. What the hell is wrong with you? There was a tag team called the U.S. Express, which was Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo. And their whole thing that they were, they carried the flag out and they were dressed in, white satin jackets that had blue and red on them. And it's, very rah, rah, Reagan's America, all American stuff. And they came out to the ring. Their entrance music was Born in the USA. It's, wow. I remember at the time going, what? Y'all just listen to the chorus and then just fine. It's like, do I have to do everything for you people? A lot of people talk about where wrestling started using popular music for, and back when wrestling started, And wrestling was one of the first things on television when television was a thing. I mean, I know it's crazy for some people out there to think about, and I know, and I get it, that there was a time when TV was this newfangled thing, and people didn't really know what to put on TV yet. They didn't have panels of people doing focus groups and trying to figure out what should go on TV and stuff like that. And wrestling was one of the first things they could put on TV because for no other reason to say it, just say it like it is, it was cheap. They weren't the studios weren't paying the wrestlers, the promoters were paying them, so they didn't have to worry about paying for stars and stuff like that. And that's why, people like Gorgeous George were some of the first television stars of the time. And if you've never seen Gorgeous George, go back on YouTube and watch some of his stuff. Man, the crowd hated him, which was his job, and it's like, wow, people really couldn't stand him. And you get it at the time why. It's like, wow, that's the thing that made people boo him, the fact that he was out there wearing kind of frilly robes and had a valet and all this stuff like that. I'm like, I'm not entirely sure how much people have changed since then, but anywho. But several people have said, well, this is when wrestling started using music, and this is when, and so on and so forth. Promoter Jerry Jarrett, in the southern part of the country, was one of the first people that was credited with it, as well as the Freebirds, the Fabulous Freebirds, which was a 3-man tag team of Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts. As far as I knew, they were the first team to use a song, and was obviously Freebird from Lynyrd Skynyrd, because it's awesome, I mean, they obviously couldn't use the live version because it's an hour and a half. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. It's just a joke. Michael also has done some singing on his own. He when they didn't use Freebird for a while, they did use a song that Michael sang called Bad Street USA, which I've heard worse. And it's really not a bad little song. I've also heard Michael's cover of Thin Lizzy's The Boys Are Back in Town, and I actually like that quite a lot. I also like the original version. It's a great song. It's really cool when you look back at wrestling and music, and you look at how some teams or wrestlers, however you want to word it, how that music just fits them. And it's just so perfect. One example that I can think of that I always thought, yeah, this makes sense, because the second you heard the music, you knew stuff was going to go nuts. And that was when the Road Warriors, or the Legion of Doom, or however you want to know them, the tag team of Hawk and Animal and their manager, Precious Paul Ellering, when they started, in their earlier career in the AWA and also in the NWA, they used Black Sabbath's Iron Man. And when you got that guitar chord at the beginning, that and then the audience would go nuts, because you knew the second that chorus started and you got the whole I am Iron Man, da-na, it's like, then you see these two muscular guys with face paint and collars with spikes on them, and they're coming running out to the ring, and they would just leap on their opponents like lions going after a kill. And the second that music started, the crowd would go absolutely mental, because they knew this was going to be an absolute slaughter, and you knew it was going to be these guys. So the second that music started, people went nuts. They were just conditioned to go crazy, because they knew that everything was about to go completely out of the window. And while they were exciting on their own, because they were big, muscular, shouty guys with face paint and stuff, having that music, having that lick at the beginning made it even more powerful and more compelling. A couple of different teams have used the same song, which I thought was interesting. I'm pretty sure at one point the Fabulous Ones used Sharp Dressed Man, which also was used by the Fantastics. I also know that the Fabulous Ones, Steve Kern and Stan Lane, also, I think at one point they did a music video to Everybody Wants You by Billy Squier. Funny story about the Fantastics. Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton were the Fantastics, and they used to come out to the ring to ZZ Top's Sharp Dressed Man. And their gimmick was kind of a pseudo Chippendales kind of a thing. They wore like the bow ties and the silk jackets and stuff like that. And they were really handsome. And they were part of a card that was at the Boston Garden. And I, being a fan, because I was young and female, I'm a woman, I have needs, don't judge me. I brought a sign because it was their first time coming to Boston, and I brought a sign. I was saying like, how, like welcome to Boston and stuff like that. And I think it was Tommy. Tommy saw the sign and he's like, "Oh, thank you." He gives me a great big hug, and I'm like, "Wow." And there's like a bunch of girls behind me, and they're all like, "Oh my gosh, he hugged you! Let me touch your shirt! Let me touch your shirt!" And I'm like, "Back off." I might have actually used that tone. Okay, so I can be scary when I want to be. Surprise. I call that my exorcist voice. I try not to use it very often. It does tend to frighten animals and small children, but it was just really, it's so neat when you have a song and it's like, that's the wonderful thing about music. No matter what, music brings memories. Music always brings back memories. And it's funny how, just jumping away from wrestling for a second, just sport. If a sport uses a specific song, it triggers a memory. Even if you're not an enormous sports fan. I mean, if you live in or around Boston and you don't do the following, Sweet Caroline, bum, 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 I'm pretty sure you will get thrown out of the state. You have to do it. Otherwise, they'll just boot you. Or you're identifying yourself as a Yankees fan and really, oh my gosh, up here, don't do that. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. I'm just kidding. Okay. This is kind of an off the top of my head show. I guess you guys can tell that. Like I mentioned, at one point or another, they finally decided, I don't know, maybe it's because wrestling got so popular that it was decided, wait a minute, all these people are using our songs to have their entrance music. We're not getting paid for this. What the hell? So wrestling companies, the larger companies, started writing their, they were like, okay, fine, if we're going to get charged for using music, unless it's a special person, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll write our own stuff. We'll hire people and we'll hire musicians and we'll write our own stuff for our wrestlers. And that's worked out, sort of, in certain cases. Your mileage may vary. I mean, some people use the same stuff because it's so identified with them. And also, I think some people use some of it because some of it's classical music, and I think that qualifies as public domain. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a lawyer. Ric Flair, for pretty much Freakin' Ever, has used also Sprach Zarathustra. Glad I wasn't like... Try and say that 10 times fast, I dare you. Also known as the theme from 2001: A Space Odyssey. And, which, I don't know, have you all ever seen that movie? I tried, man. I've tried more than once to sit through 2001, and I'm just like, nope. Either this movie is way smarter than I am, or I'm way dumber than I thought I was, because I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, it's filmed better than the moon landing was. If you get that joke, you get that joke. And no, I'm not buying into that bull crap either. But we already did a conspiracy theory show. I ain't doing that again. Also, just real quick, He did variations of it, but the late great Macho Man Randy Savage used to his ring entrance was always uh, Pomp and Circumstance or a variation of Pomp and Circumstance. So I'm assuming that's public domain. I mean, I can't see every high school in the history of America paying for it whenever you graduate, but what do I know? And sometimes stuff gets changed around. A good example being The Undertaker. The Undertaker, for the longest time, used a variation of the Funeral March, which I know everybody knows. And for a while, because he had changed his look, and he'd gone from being scary dead man Undertaker to American badass biker Undertaker, he changed his music and was, for a while, he was using Rollin' from Limp Bizkit. And he also was using, at one point, American Badass from Kid Rock, and then eventually went back to the whole spooky, dark Undertaker stuff, which was really hot. Interesting. All right, it was hot. Woman needs, don't judge. But, I mean, did I like the spooky stuff better? Yeah. I dig the spooky stuff. What can I say? You know, mentioned it before. But sometimes the wrestling organizations that are out there now, the larger ones, WWE, AEW, and so on and so forth, they will shell out the bucks to use a song that's, you know, well known, not an original written song for them, just something that's popular. Great example being CM Punk. Whose use of Cult of Personality is very well known. Personally, I'm happy about it because I love Cult of Personality. I loved Living Color. I think they're a great band. I think that it sucks. That's the only song they seem to be very well known for, because there were some other songs that were really terrific as well. And I mean, like I said, I've always liked it. So, Ruby Soho was using Ruby Soho from Rancid. And I mean, I like it when it's when they use a song I know. John Moxley's using Wild Thing, which the first I was like, what the hell? Because I was like, that's not the version I know. I was like, oh, okay, somebody else did a version of Wild Thing besides the Trogs, because I don't pay attention to stuff and I'm dumb. I was like, well, I guess it could be worse. It could be the Sam Kinison version. R.I.P. Sam. Sorry. Sorry if there's any Sam Kinison fans out there. Sometimes, however, some people probably knew this was coming, so you may want to get behind a blast shield or something. Sometimes when people you don't really like are using a song that you do, you tend to get a little bit annoyed. And you're not supposed to like these people at this time because they're the bad guys. And I get that. That's fine. But when it was announced that the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, and I'm not calling you Matthew or Nicholas, F you, it's my show, and Kenny Omega were trademarking Wayward Sons, or that was a rumor that was going around, I was like, what? And I kept hearing rumors. And I'm like, no, they're not going to do this. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do this. And then Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks made their entrance to Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas. Now, I don't know how many people out there know this, and if you don't, I'd like to lay some knowledge on you. Carry On Wayward Son is very, very, very important to the Supernatural family. And yes, we do call ourselves a family. It's a dysfunctional family, I'll be the first to admit it, but that's what our fans call ourselves. Deal with it. And I don't want to sound like I'm gatekeeping. Goodness knows, I try not to gatekeep. I really do. I'm not ever going to say, well, you can't be a fan because blah, blah, blah. But the fact that these dimwits were using this song, my reaction was not good. It kind of went a little something like this. I'm not sure what TC put in there, but I'm pretty sure it was appropriate. Thanks, Puddin'. I mean, I have found out since then that Kenny Omega is a Supernatural fan or used to watch Supernatural. So I was like, all right, I guess that makes it doable. And by the way, this is all being done not really knowing any of these people, and I'm sure they're all wonderful people in real life. And quick PS, Terrence and I want to say to Kenny, get well soon. Diverticulitis sounds like it's a really awful thing, and we hope you get better soon. There's a ton of other people that I could bring up that have really good original songs. One person that has a really good song that they use, it's an original piece, is Randy Orton. Besides his stupid release the doves pose, have you ever seen this thing that he does up on the ropes where he does that? I call that the release the doves pose, and nobody's going to stop me from doing it because I just think it's funny. His entrance music is a song called Viper. It's not Viper, Venom in My Veins, and it kicks ass. It's a really good song. There's a couple of songs I've never heard anybody use, but I'd like to. Somebody out there needs to use Ready to Die from Andrew WK. Andrew WK needs to be used more for wrestling themes because Andrew WK is awesome, and I will fight you on that. I mean, I'd love to see that because that would be great. Party Till You Puke would be another really good song, also by Andrew WK. I think that'd be great. And there's been so many other people that have used other great songs, as if I wish I could name all of them, but I can't. And if you have if there's so many places online on YouTube that you can go and check out for wrestling news and interviews and opinions and whatnot and stuff like that. Because of course everybody has an opinion, which they're entitled to. And I can't name all of them, but I will name a few. What Culture Wrestling, Cultaholic Wrestling, Tooneytown Wrestling, hey Marvin, Wrestling with Regret, hey Brian. There's just like tons of them if you want to look for them. And if you have any favorite entrance themes that I haven't mentioned, please platinumroselle@yahoo.com. If you have any comments, queries, money, 10s and 20s, please. No, I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. platinumroselle@yahoo.com. If you like this show, leave a comment. If you would be nice enough to press the little like button. If you would like to follow all of the shows on this channel, most of which are done by TC, who is way more organized, knowledgeable, and has nice, pretty blue eyes. I'm biased, sue me. Please do that because he's super awesome and talented. And that is going to wrap things up for another week here on Kim Takes On. So once again, I'm Kim. Once again, this is Terrence. And we both wish you a happy rest of your week and keep rocking.